Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this additional meeting of the Licensing Committee. It's actually a hearing rather than a full Licensing Committee, I've just been informed. My name is Councillor James Gibson. I'm Chair of the Licensing Committee, and I ask my colleagues, members, to introduce themselves. We're going from left, please.
Councillor Kate Haig, Farnley Wortley Ward.
Good morning, Isaac Wilson, proud councillor for Wheatwood.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor Asghali, representing Kipton and Hare Hills.
Morning, everybody. Councillor Rick Downs, Otley and Yeadon Ward.
Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, officers first, please. Helen, we'll start with you, please.
I'm Helen Gray, I'm the clerk to the committee.
I'm Robert Brown. I'm a solicitor in Leeds City Council's Legal Services, and I'm the legal advisor to the committee today.
Good morning, everybody. Matthew Nelson on behalf of Entertainment Licensing.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Polly Kirk, the Chief Officer for Climate, Energy and Green Spaces. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Becky Mears and I'm the Events and Resources Manager for Climate, Energy and Green Spaces.
Hi everyone, I'm Sonia MacDonald. I'm the Head of Commercial and Estates.
Great, thank you very much, everybody, and welcome. I'll just remind everybody that this is being webcast live. So maybe people, members of the public, will be watching. So if we move to agenda items number 1 to 5, please, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Under agenda item number 1, there are no appeals against refusal of inspection of documents. Agenda item 2, there's no items that require the exclusion of the press or the public. Agenda item 3, there are no formal late items, but there was a supplementary pack circulated to members and published on the website relating to the application for Roundhay Park. Item number 4, could I ask members to declare any interests that you might have? I can see none, thank you. Agenda item 5 is apologies, and we've received apologies from Councillors Bowden, Buckley, Carlisle, Farley, Hinchcliffe, Hamilton, Martin, Senior and Pogson Golden. Thank you, Chair.
Much, Helen. Right, okay. Agenda item number 6, which is the application to vary premise licence for Roundhay Park. So if we move to the legal officer, please, to outline the procedure.
Thank you, Chair. The procedure that we followed today will be that the applicant's representatives will address the committee first, and then we would normally have any other parties who'd submitted valid representations would have the opportunity to speak. There are no objectors here today, and no other people who've put in representations either. But I would suggest that it would then be for members to ask questions of the applicant's representatives, and then it would be back to the applicant's representative to sum up the application. In making its determination, the subcommittee will consider what is appropriate and proportionate to promote the licensing objectives, which are 1, the prevention of crime and disorder, 2, public safety, 3, the prevention of public nuisance, and 4, the protection of children from harm. The regulations permit the subcommittee to set a time limit on presentations, and our usual
Sorry,
time...
Rob, we're not a subcommittee though, are we?
Sorry, not.
Yeah, just committee.
Apologies.
There may be people watching online, you know,
quite.
Just in case.
No, well, you're quite right, Chair, and the clarification on that would be that because of the type and size of application, that this has to be heard by the licensing committee and not by a subcommittee.
Just very quickly, just for if anybody is watching, because there are a large number of apologies, just to confirm that we are quorum with the 5 members present.
That's correct. Thank you. So the usual time limit would be 15 minutes, but the applicant may wish to request longer than 15 minutes. So can I just check with them? No? Okay, so 15 minutes will apply to your presentation and to your summing up at the end. So you may wish to split your time, say, for example, 10 minutes initially and then 5 minutes at the end. But how you split your time is entirely up to you. After your presentation, members may wish to ask questions, and the time for those questions to be asked and answered is in addition to your time limit set for your presentation. Cross-examination isn't permitted in committee, but I don't think that's probably going to apply here. Only questions will be from elected members. Parties may request permission to call witnesses. Can I just ask the applicant's representative whether they wish to call any witnesses.
No.
Thank you. All documents that have been submitted have been copied and circulated to the committee in advance. It would be helpful when referring to documents to identify them by the agenda pack page numbering. Can I just ask if there are any additional documents that you wish to refer to?
No, there aren't.
Okay, thank you. Please note your presentation is your opportunity to address the committee direct, so you should try to make sure that you've included everything that you wish to say and to have taken into account. That said, the committee has read the bundle, and this hearing is an opportunity for you to perhaps emphasise or expand upon any particular points you would like the committee to focus on. After your presentation and after any questions, the committee will go into private session. If members then have any additional questions, you may be asked to return to the committee room. For that reason, you're asked to remain in the antechamber until the meeting's been closed. All parties present will be informed once the hearing has ended and will be advised of the decision either at the end of the hearing or in writing within 5 working days of today. Does anyone have any questions or concerns about the procedure I've just outlined? Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move over to the licensing officer. Have we, just to confirm, Matthew, I mean, you know, when we normally have these subcommittees, and this is for the for anybody who is watching, members of the public that are watching live. So this is very similar to how a subcommittee would run. Members of the public are able to watch subcommittees, but not live on web stream. So this is quite unique that we're mirroring how a subcommittee would run, but with more members. So I'm asking the question: do you outline in this item, on this explanation, how many people have objected and that you've offered them to come, but they've not turned up, basically?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. I will outline the application just like I usually do with every subcommittee application. Each person that's objected has been sent a notice of hearing. They have been invited to attend the hearing, but none of them have indicated that they will be attending. So in their absence, it's their written representations you'll be taking into consideration.
Yeah, so ordinarily they'd be objectors. So what would normally happen is that the applicant would have up to 15 minutes, and then the objectors would also have the same amount of time to be able to outline their case, and then councillors would have the opportunity to question both. But since there aren't any people that have objected to the application here, councillors won't have the opportunity to do that today.
So I'll outline the application. So this is in relation to a variation to the premises licence for Roundhay Park. The proposal is to increase the maximum capacity for events from 19,999 to 69,999 people, to remove both indoor sporting events and boxing and wrestling entertainment from the licence, and to update the operating schedule by replacing the conditions attached to the licence under Annex 2. To assist the committee, the existing premise licence details can be found at Appendix 1, a copy of the variation application at Appendix 2, and the new conditions specific to events are set out in the document which is attached at Appendix 3. Amongst those conditions offered by the applicant is a commitment to providing an event management plan for each event which is held under the terms of the licence, and to engage with the Leeds Safety Advisory Group or equivalent process. The representation by the Environmental Protection Team has been withdrawn following an agreement to adopt additional conditions in relation to music-led events with a capacity greater than 10,000 people, and a copy of the representation and agreement is available at Appendix 5. On behalf of other persons, the licensing authorities received 4 individual objections from members of the public, and copies can be found at Appendix 6 of the report on page 63. On receiving copies of the representations, the applicant has sent a letter to each objector outlining the steps that they are willing to take. The letter has been published as a supplementary item, and the 4 representations remain outstanding for the committee's consideration. Finally, the options available to the committee in deciding the item are set out on page 5 under the recommendations at paragraph C. And it should be noted that the option to exclude any licensable activity to which the application relates is not applicable in this instance, as the applicant does not propose any new licensable activity. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you very much. Matthew, questions for officers, members? We're all very practiced at this procedure, so I presume not. No, in which case I shall invite the applicant to outline the case, please.
Okay, good morning everyone. I'm going to keep it fairly short and sweet. And I suppose what I'd like to just start by saying is actually there's a lot of nostalgia for events in Roundhay Park. So we've seen people ranging from Michael Jackson, Madonna, Bruce Springsteen, Robbie Williams play there. And the most recent was 2019 where we had Ed Sheeran. And actually what we've seen even under the sort of Facebook and notification for this licensing is actually people are quite excited about what could it mean, what might be coming back. And so there's been a sort of a longer term desire to actually be able to start doing bigger events in Roundhay Park. Saying that, we are really mindful that it is within quite a close-knit sort of residential area, and that anything we do needs to balance that local demand versus the sort of overall city, or the benefits to the city's economy and everything else. So what we are looking to propose through this licence is that we have no more than 2 weekends of events. We, pending a successful licence, we have an event promoter who wants to work with us, who is actually very, very experienced. They work in some of the busiest public parks within the country and have been running events similar to what will be proposed here for many, many years, and working very, very successfully with local communities. So one of their big kind of strategies is actually, if we're successful in the licence application today, that they will immediately begin that local community engagement and actually working through any of the challenges that they might come across. Also just setting a bit of a scene around the team that we have within the service. So we have our own events team that's headed up by Becky, who's here today. And actually what that brings us is a really good level of understanding of running events. So obviously there are numerous events run at Temple Newsome. There's Carnival that is actually run by the team. And so actually what that allows us to do is actually be to really understand the challenges that events can present and make sure that we mitigate and all the correct questions are asked, and that actually we anticipate and prepare as effectively as possible. And actually Becky was here when Ed Sheeran was run, so has hands-on experience of what happened at Roundhay back then. I suppose in the objection letter we set out some of the key headings and the key areas which do raise concern when any event is held. So noise, traffic congestion and parking, access for emergency services, park usage and environmental safeguards, economic impact, antisocial behaviour and litter management. And my intention today wasn't to kind of walk through all of those, because we've included the letter, the sort of detailed letter in the plan. But so that we sent back to the 4 objectives which set out what we would do under all of those headings. But I think probably the time is best used now by allowing people to ask more detailed questions. So thank you very much for your time.
Sure.
Thank you. Just to supplement what Polly said there around the 2 weekends. So there would be the 2 weekends of events up to the scale of the new licence. Yeah.
Me too. That's exactly what I was going to ask. Okay, over to members, please. I've not had anybody indicate yet.
Yeah.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Describes in the application that you're looking to protect the kind of ecologically sensitive parts of Roundhay Park. Can you say more about that? How do you intend to do that? And what are the ecologically sensitive parts of Roundhay Park? Are there sections where like the event attenders and stuff might be able to go, for example? Would appreciate some more on that.
Thank you. I think Roundhay Park's a known event venue, so it has events all year round, obviously not on this scale, and most events are held within the open parkland, so they deliberately avoid the more natural habitats, the woodlands, the lakes. They stay away from them, and this event would be exactly the same. So we know the areas that we need to avoid, which, like I say, is
We'll just pause a second.
Thank you. So yeah, there are very large swathes of Roundhay Park that are open parkland that obviously aren't as ecologically impacted by events that we have, and they would be the areas that are utilised, which are the very high footfall public open spaces.
So just to confirm, as you say, you already hold events at Roundhay Park. You don't need more space, you don't need to go outside of the areas you already use for events for a 70,000 event capacity.
No, so at any one weekend, like last weekend at Roundhay Park, there were actually 3 events that took place within the park. We've got 700 acres, of which the majority of it is open parkland that enables us to hold events of this size without having any impact on the natural habitats within the park.
Just to push back on that a little bit, the red line of licensable activity, I've got the map in front of me here. It does go right next to the to Waterloo Lake, takes in the upper lake. Some of the woodland around the upper lake. Anybody who knows Roundhay Park well will know what I'm talking about. That woodland next to upper lake, as you go down towards the folly, towards the lake, that's within the licensable activity. As are some of the woods further down to north towards. Not Skulls, what's it called? Shadwell. All of that's in there as well. Yeah. So why have you put the line like that when, I hope nobody's going to be using that area?
No, so the red line boundary for the estate is the estate as a whole. This event, this application is our annual event, our annual licence. It's not just solely for events up to 70,000. Roundhay Park probably hosts about 100 events a year, ranging of all different sizes. So we have to be quite conscious when making this application that this licence also is for other events, and that could be for a small event within the woods that is organised by the Friends of groups or local conservation groups, so that do have some licensable activity. And I think we needed to be quite conscious when doing the application that we didn't isolate anybody else who would be using the park. So there are events that take place in those areas, but they are very, very small scale, and that doesn't mean that we would ever allow these types of events to encroach on those areas.
So it's my understanding, and we've got the legal officer here but might be able to clarify for us, that you don't need a licence for under 499 people. So for sort of small events, you wouldn't need a licence anyway for some of the things that you're describing. So, and given what we've talked about and already highlighted by Councillor Wilson in terms of the potential ecological impact on some of the sensitive areas, i.e. the woods that I've already described, I'd be concerned if there was events larger than 499, to be honest.
Sorry. So we've left it in there because a couple of years ago we had a Christmas light trail that went through some of those areas, and that was licensable. So while the footfall at any one time wasn't particularly high over the duration of the event, over 30 days, it actually encompassed that. So I think we've just left it as it was previously, because this was the footprint that we had before, just to cover off all bases, just in case, so that we don't isolate any inquiries.
So when it comes specifically to the event that the bigger, larger events that Polly's already talked about, we can say categorically that the areas that I've mentioned, the woods near the upper lake, surrounding the upper lake, to the east of it, to the north of it, and some of the other, there's woods. I mean, I am a little bit concerned about the sort of the west footpath of the lake as well. There's the bit near the boathouse that I presume you're going to have to use for people to be able to get to the event. But going further round the lake, where the path isn't great anyway, just because of the way that the land slopes and you get a lot of water and it sort of ruins the path there. And actually, that's where a lot of nesting birds are and things as well. We grow the grass out around there. You can tell that I run around it most days, don't you? I'd be concerned about the event sort of encroaching on those areas? And can we guarantee that that's not going to happen as well?
Absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly. The footpath doesn't accommodate for any types of events like that, and even now we don't permit them to use that path on the other side of the lake for anything other than a run that takes place.
Yeah, just expanding on what my colleagues just said, and it's something that perhaps legal can advise, and I just wonder, is there any way that we could have a red line around where we allow the larger capacity but award a licence for the whole of the area, so that you limit the larger events? I know exactly what you're saying, but I think a semantic might be that if there's the condition that we're not going into the ecologically concerning areas.
Well, I suppose the difficulty is that this is an existing licence. It's not a fresh application for a new licence. So, if you could.
I am just trying to dig out the existing plan, which it forms part of the licence. It's Annex 4, and I have got an outline of the existing plan. It mirrors that one. So that area is already licensed.
I accept that that's the existing licence, but as a licensing authority, do we not have the power to adjust a licence, even if because it's an application to amend it? And I'm just curious as to whether we could ask whether the applicant would accept that, so that we sort of ring fence it and ensure that that doesn't happen.
I think that they shouldn't usually end up with less than they had to start with. I think that might be the...
No, I agree with that, but with it being the council, I just thought it might be something that, is it legally possible? If it's not, then it's not. But if it is, and they've said that they won't hold any events in those areas of a large scale, and I'm just thinking that if we could tie that down so that the public can see that those areas will be protected from large events. That's all I'm trying to achieve. The council can... I genuinely believe that the council won't put on events, because I think it would be absolutely insane to do so. But I just think if we could restrict it, it might just show a picture for moving forward. But if we can't, we can't.
Well, my advice would be you need to put that to the applicant's representatives to see what their response would be first of all.
I was just seeing whether it would be feasible if we put it to them. That's all I'm trying to get to. If it's a non-starter, then I won't put it to them. But if it is, I'm sort of getting the feeling that they don't want to do it there, and I just think that if it's written in writing, then it's clear for everybody that that's not what's going to happen.
So I think the conversations we've been having with the company, it has a different red line boundary, because obviously we enter into a contract with them. If it's not legally possible, we'd be happy to share that red line boundary, just to provide comfort that what we're saying is true, and that actually it will be separate. Or whether that just provides enough confidence anyway that we share that on a confidential basis at the moment, because obviously we're not in an agreement until there is a licence, so we're in a bit of a chicken and egg situation. But
Could you just clarify for my benefit? Obviously, I can't advise you, albeit you're also an officer. Are you saying that you would be entering into contractual arrangements with the event promoter which would limit the area for their use? Because that might be something that the members might need to see.
yes, that is what we're saying. So for all the reasons that everyone's raised, we wouldn't want to give an event promoter carte blanche to use the whole site. So we've taken into consideration what they can use within it, which has picked up all the concerns that you've raised today.
I don't know, Chair, whether you would want to question them further on that, but it's difficult without seeing those plans and also commercial agreements, which might be sensitive.
Second point, the capacity that you're asking for is 7999. Sorry, 69,999. Sorry, 69,999. I went to see Genesis in '87, and there was about 80,000 there then, and I know of friends that went to see Michael Jackson. I think there were about 90,000 there. So what we're saying is that you're applying for a limit that was lower than events that have already taken place. And I know Ed Sheeran had about 150, but that was spread over 2 days. So I'm assuming that by reducing what has been proven to have worked, and I suspect that local residents may say on some of them it didn't work as well as they may have liked, but we have had experience of events of a bigger capacity there. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there were a significant amount that got into those concerts in the 80s without tickets, so I think those numbers are extremely higher than that. But I think legislation has changed, how we manage events has changed since the 80s, and in order to do it properly we need to have a suitable capacity, and it's been determined that 69,000 really is the limit that you can do it comfortably in order to ensure safe ingress and egress and minimal impact to the local area as well.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. How was it determined that 69,000 was the safe operating limit, and how a crowd's going to be contained? Will be a fence or something put up, and how's that going to be managed? And given that people are travelling freely to the event through what's a very open park, there's bound to be an impact on the other spaces as people go to and from these events. So how will we protect what still will be large numbers of people in the park using those spaces as they're going to and from those events?
I think when determining whether a site is suitable for an event, you basically have to determine how fast you can egress them if there's an emergency. So you create the space, you work out your calculations of how many people you can fit in there, and then how many you can get out of there should you need to if there's an emergency. So we would have to be able to evacuate that site, the event site, which would be the arena of Roundhay Park, within 15 minutes. And basically the capacity of that space and being able to egress them within 15 minutes will determine how many people you can fit in that space. Therefore, that's how we've equated to the 69,000. Anything above that makes it quite challenging to egress within 15 minutes legally required. I agree, people know Roundhay Park and they will come at it from every angle that they know. But there will be designated ingress and egress routes. So while I agree people will come at it from the locations that they know, we know that that's happened in the past. We know from Ed Sheeran that happened. People come at it from various different angles, but there will be designated ingress routes, which mean that in order to get to the gates, to get into the site, there will be dedicated ways which will be signposted in order to get there. The footfall that came from various other locations was relatively low. It wasn't a particularly high footfall. And on egress, they're not lit. So anybody who is not using the designated routes at that point, there's not an awful lot we can do about it. It is an open park. The event will be fenced. It will be steel shielded. And that what will happen is, which is what's happened in the past, is that we have to have a safe working space in order to build the infrastructure. So that fence line will start off relatively small with a very, very little impact on the park. And then as nearer to the event it gets, it will grow until we get to a point where we have a steel shield around the event site to stop people getting in. And that will be closed for the event days. We've had conversations already potentially with the promoter that should, this be successful, because it's for 2 weekends, that space will then be opened up through the week so that people can come in and have a look around the site or access the public paths that are within it. So it will only ever be closed for the event days, and then that site will be opened up again.
Just to come back on that, I think there's a slight contradiction in what you said, because you said that whilst it's being built, the interior will be closed. So that's going to take a little while. So it's not going to be just closed for 2 weekends, is it?
No, sorry, what I meant was when the event build site starts, it has to be safe. So in order to make it safe, we have to create a safe working space. So there will be a very small fence line around that area that's been built. And as the event grows, that fence line will be moved. So it will be moved, and it will be moved in various different locations depending on the work that's been done. So there might be a stage here, or they might be doing something there. Those areas will be closed until eventually it is the event weekend, and then the site will be closed in its entirety.
Just moving on to traffic management, and I looked at what was said in the response to the objectors as well. There isn't a reference here to need to close roads, and I wondered what had been considered about that, so that residents' access is protected, but the public is discouraged from driving to the event.
Yeah, undoubtedly there will be the need for road closures. It's very difficult at this time to say what they will be or what that will look like, because obviously we're pending the licence application. We've not really entered into too many conversations about that, but we have done this in the past. So we do know that there will have to be road closures that are in place, and yet again we work with the local residents to understand what their needs are and how we can manage that. I think last time we issued about 1,500 vehicle residence passes that allowed vehicles access to their homes, but no other event traffic could get in. So it meant that, you know, they could continue with their day relatively easily without any disruption, but also their street wasn't blocked with event traffic either. So I think it's a work in progress. It's not something that we have any fine detail on at this time, but as plans progress, it would be something that we'd be looking to do. We would also hold resident open days, which is what we've done before. So residents can come along, have a look at the plans, we can discuss them with them, understand what their needs are and how we can address those.
Well, I mean, it's sort of on the transport point. I don't know if this should be done privately or not, but obviously when we look at licensing for businesses, a key question is like how that license variation or license would affect that business. So I'm interested to know what sort of revenue this is likely to generate for the council and how that money is being used essentially. But I don't know if that should be. We wouldn't actually ask, we'd say it's commercially sensitive. So the relevance, I suppose the relevance is basically, yeah, but also looking at transport, whether this enables us to do things like, you know, put in secure bike storage or kind of in some way support sustainable transport to the park, given that the objections that were there are particularly around the impact on transport, and that impact will be felt all over the city.
Ordinarily on a subcommittee, that would be a commercially sensitive question. I mean, you know, the subcommittees aren't public anyway, but a sort of a commercially sensitive question like that, if there was any members of the public present, we wouldn't expect somebody to answer. I don't see why the rule should be any different in this hearing. However, I suppose there could be a way of answering around potentially some of the benefits that wouldn't be you don't have to go into anything commercially sensitive. You could say that there could be local benefits if there are any, but I'd leave it down to your discretion, Polly. If you want to mention anything, you're under no pressure to do so.
Yeah, so it is commercially sensitive, so we can't go into the detail, but I think that's sort of part of the local community engagement, isn't it? About those sort of things will come out, and you know, agreements will be reached to try and help mitigate, because what the event promoter ultimately wants to do is leave a good taste in everyone's mouth at the end of it, and the way that they do that is by engaging. And if there are suggestions about things that might help, we've had examples where they've worked really closely with Friends of Roundhay Park previously, different event organisers, where they've provided sort of funding or worked with them as a group of volunteers. So things like that obviously help the event run better, they help it be better received by the community. So I think that will be part of the kind of detailed engagement that happens with the event promoter. Do you want to say?
Yeah, I think we looked into this for when we did Ed Sheeran as well, and I think, you know, we engaged with some colleagues about determining what the city looks like when we had major events as well, to see what the economic impact was. And, you know, we were able to determine that, you know, hotels were at capacity, and that business, in terms of business rates, the city did very well when we had major events taking place. So not only did the local area, in terms of the local pubs, cafes, restaurants benefit, but also the city as a whole did as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ali, did you have a question?
Thank you. I'm looking at, you've done consultation engagement already. Could you touch upon that? Here it says on page number 7 that ward members have been consulted. Could I get some feedback on that and what engagements you've already done? And I'm just trying to look at what is sustainable and how you've managed to come up with the number you have. I know that comrades here have said that 80s and 90s. I remember Michael Jackson's concert, Who's Bad? I remember going to it. From there to now, the infrastructure hasn't changed, but people's behaviour has changed. How we travel has changed. We didn't charge for parks, and we charge for parking now. Parks department struggles at this present moment with parks already at capacity. So how would you deal with this? Then resources in West Yorkshire Police, that's another one. But we're looking at Roundhay Ward, but this would impact my ward, A58, Roundhay Road going in. That's a major artery to the biggest hospital in Europe. There would be backlogs. This would impact Chapeltown Road, Harrogate Road, Chapel Allerton Ward, the capacity you have come up with. So there's 3 or 4 questions. I want to start off with first is the consultation you've had already and the engagement and how you've come to this number. Yes, we've had this in the 80s and the 90s.
So if I just start with the ward member engagement, so to this stage we have sent them a briefing note. We had feedback that some of them were excited about the kind of concept and about the nostalgia of bringing the parks together. We've offered a further detailed kind of consultation meeting, but again we want the event promoter to be part of that rather than it to be us, because they will be the one doing the more detailed work on the ground. We are the licence holder overall, so that will carry on. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, Becky, on that.
Obviously, we know it will impact other wards, especially sort of from the A58 traffic. We know there was very busy, and actually that's one of the main trafficking in routes to Roundhay Park. We are quite lucky that the E-law's now there, and that helps us move traffic along a lot quicker. But absolutely agree that we need to sort of consult wider once we know more detail in the plans. We haven't got that far in terms of traffic, knowing where we're going to bring them in from, because what we do to determine that is we look at the ticket data. So once the tickets are on sale, we use that data to determine how people are, where they're coming from, which routes they're coming in, which motorways they're using, what transport links. That then helps us form the traffic management plan, which means that we can then consult wider in a better way and a more informed way. In terms of blue light services, all major events cannot have a detrimental impact on blue light services. If they want policing, they will have to pay for it, and medical provision on site will have to be sufficient enough that it doesn't impact hospitals. So we've got Carnival next weekend, and we will have the equivalent of an A&E on site. So and most big events will have that. So they're doctor-led. They will have their own ambulances should they need to transport anybody. But the reality is that most of that will be done on site to reduce the impact on the local hospital networks.
I mean, I must say actually that I totally get it. There's sort of no point in consulting deeply with ward members until you've got concrete plans. But I do think that there would have been legs in consulting with, or at least offering some reassurance to councillors, ward councillors, about the process, because my ward neighbours it as well. Crossgates and Winmore neighbours Roundhay only just, and the Wetherby Road roundabouts will be affected. I can't remember getting a briefing note. I did have one of the ward councillors actually for Roundhay text me and saying, what briefing have we had about this yet? So I think in future, that needs to be taken into consideration. I totally understand as I've said, you can't give detailed plans yet, but sort of a detailed plan, a sort of outline of the process. We're going to go for a licence first, and then we're going to consult when we have more information would have been useful and reassure ward members. Back to Councillor Ali.
My question is back again to, so we have a capacity of 20,000, 19,000? So this is 70,000 capacity. How did you come up with that number?
Yet again, that's based on the ability to evacuate an event site. So an event site you have to be able to evacuate within 15 minutes. So therefore you create a boundary of where your event will be held, and you calculate backwards till you get to a figure that is safe to egress, and that's where we've got to that figure.
So imagine that if we had 70,000 individuals turn up, where is the question of sustainability? You've talked about the carnival coming weekend. Last year, I've lived 40 carnivals now. Last year was probably the worst managed carnival that I've witnessed as an individual. There were signs up, there were no enforcement, and that was the West Yorkshire Police. Okay, so I'm trying to understand here that if you have 70,000 people, how you're going to manage an infrastructure that hasn't improved since the 80s and the 90s.
The infrastructure of the park hasn't changed, but the infrastructure for events has. So in the 80s and 90s, it was literally just a Harris fence, little metal fence that you could see through. That doesn't happen anymore. The infrastructure that is in now for events is fit for purpose. It wasn't fit for purpose in the 80s. So while the infrastructure of the park hasn't changed and the size of the park hasn't changed, how events are delivered has significantly. They're subject to a lot more governance than they used to be. Every plan that they submit will be subject to Leeds Safety Advisory Group scrutiny. It will go to a board of people who will approve it to make sure that it meets the legal requirements, to make sure that it's fit for purpose. The plans are written in line with the Event Safety Management Guide plan, the Purple Guide, government document that states how events should be done. All of those things are now in place that weren't in place in the 80s. So those are our guidelines essentially as to how we do events and how we manage them effectively. And then they're subject to scrutiny through the Leeds Safety Advisory Group, which is made up of colleagues from the council, Blue Light Partners, Highways. Every agency is in on that. Network Rail, WICA, everybody has input on those plans to make sure that they are fit for purpose and that the city can manage that capacity as well as Roundhay Park.
We normally have access to the SAG through Resilience Direct. If you want access to it for this event, Councillor Ali, I'm sure I can arrange that for you.
So what you're describing is possibly similar to what I've seen already in the last 3 years, what happens at Leeds Fest. So this is probably the setup you're describing. Okay, all right, thank you.
Chair, can I just interject there? I think Councillor Downs raised a question earlier about whether it would be possible to condition the licence and to exclude the certain ecologically sensitive areas. My advice is that because a condition has to be necessary for the promotion of the one or more of the licensing objectives, I don't think that would work in that sense because it wouldn't tie in close enough to one of the licensing objectives. A condition has to be necessary for that, but not just desirable, as members may decide it would be desirable. The other point I'd like to raise at this stage is that some information was received yesterday. I've only just been made aware of it myself. It's a response to the letter from the applicant's representatives to the objectors, and it also attaches some photos and a video. And I think it's probably necessary for members to see that information because it was submitted before today's hearing, albeit it's a Sunday before, so it doesn't require the consent of the parties present for it to be tabled. But obviously I need to check with the applicant's representative whether they've actually had a chance to see that as well.
We saw it very briefly this morning on app before we arrived here, so we've not had a chance to look at it properly, but we have had sight of it, yes.
Can I just suggest perhaps you might want to consider a short adjournment so that everybody can have a look at that information and then reconvene?
Yeah, I think it is around this. There seems to be an issue here where we are talking about working with a promoter who perhaps has the answers to some of the questions that we would want to ask of them, and is it possible that we would, once that agreement has been reached, be able to perhaps have them come to a licensing committee so that we can look at their methodology in the same way as we do for Leeds Festival, for example, because I do think we don't want to hold ourselves to a lower standard than we hold other operators. In fact, very much the opposite. We should be holding ourselves to a higher standard. And I do have concerns that about consultation with ward members, not only in Roundhay Ward but in surrounding wards, that really they should have been given an opportunity before we came to this hearing to have some feedback, because we've got no information as to whether they are supportive or objecting, probably because they've not had the detail on which to form an opinion. So I do find that a bit of a concern that we've come into this hearing without those things taking place.
Just to say, Councillor Haigh, that ward members have had the same notification as they would for any other application, and obviously ward members are very familiar with the process of receiving emails from entertainment licensing of notifications of TENs and applications, sifting through that and gauging public opinion and then making representations. So I think the process that the applicant has followed is the same, and entertainment licensing followed is exactly the same that we would normally see. So there's no, and members would normally see. My suggestion, and to echo some of the points raised by colleagues, and to sort of support Councillor Haig's comment, was that actually it would have been, given that it's a council application, it would have been better to have some more information at least of the process before we reach this point. But just to clarify, the process has been followed exactly as it ordinarily would do. To the first point, sorry, for Councillor Haigh, please, which was a suggestion of coming to a licensing committee meeting in the same way that Leeds Festival does. So it's part of their agreement that they'll come for a meeting. SAG partners will attend. Whether we need something on that scale, obviously Leeds Festival is much bigger. A much bigger event over the course of 2 days with camping and things, but the suggestion from Councillor Haigh around representatives of the organisation that you're working with and perhaps the applicant as well is a good one. Whether or not we need the whole SAG there is a different matter.
Yeah, we're perfectly happy to commit to that. That's not a problem. I think it would be beneficial.
Okay, we're going to go into adjournment, partly for deliberation, but also partly to look at new evidence that came late last night. If you guys can wait in the antechamber, please. We may need you to come back in to ask some more questions. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much, colleagues, for that very useful discussion. Just to sum up, some of the things that we discussed was ensuring that none of the ecologically sensitive areas are encroached on. There was a lot of discussion about how important it is to ensure that those areas are protected in our park, and that's been fed back to us by local councillors and the public. Also, we had a very good discussion around additional scrutiny going forward, and I think that's something that all councillors agreed would be a useful exercise to ensure that if the event ever did take place, depending on whether or not we decide to grant a licence, that there is plenty of oversight and scrutiny to make sure that events would be as successful and as possible. So we are going to write to the applicants in 5 working days. I'll let Rob just announce that.
Thank you, Chair. Well, yeah, the options are for you to either give a decision today or within 5 working days. Members have decided to give the decision within 5 working days once they've seen it in draft and approved it.
That's great. Thank you very much, Rob. Okay, so we'll move now on to agenda item number 7, which is the date and time of the next committee meeting, which is Tuesday the 23rd of September at 10 a.m. And that does conclude today's business. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time and your efforts.